So this is just 5 minutes after the stated time of the broadcast. This broadcast is timed at 0500 hours GMT, which is British Standard Time, so-called 6 o'clock in the morning of Wednesday, the 28th of September 2022. Now we are going to take a look at some of the headlines on the front pages of the Fleet Street newspapers of Tuesday, that is yesterday, for the very important reason that Lies Truss, Lies is the name that I've given her, Lies Truss is unraveling faster than even I would have suspected, because of the stupidity of the idiot holding a PhD, apparently, the mental slave Kwasi Kwarteng, issuing this mini-budget madness and stupidity. But before all of that, I have to take a look at page 9 of The Guardian of Tuesday, 27th of September 2022. Why? Because the inquiry into Boris Johnson's corruption and abuse of the post of the mayor while he was having an adulterous relationship with Jennifer Arcuri is, in a brief way, back in the news in the Guardian, at least. It's not covered in the Scum or the Daily Mail, as far as I can see, or in the Telegraph, but I'll check if the Telegraph of Tuesday, because I'm looking at the papers of Tuesday, the 27th of September 2022, which was yesterday, and we didn't broadcast anything yesterday, until now, that is, and I shall be looking at the changing atmosphere, the language and the approach and the presentation attaching to the Labour Party, fronted by the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. Because as far as Fleet Street is concerned, which is the establishment, Keir Starmer is the next Prime Minister, because the Labour Party, according to them, is certain to, quote, win the election, whenever that is called. And this week's goings on in Liverpool, where the Starmer-fronted Labour Party is having the annual jamboree. Jamboree is the word that I used more than 30 years ago, when I presented a number of editions of the review of the papers on the BBC Radio London. Remember, I was not paid. I am not paid for anything I do by the media, on the media, really. Newsnight owes me money going back to 1992, when I led the campaign against the racists of the Stratford School. Newsnight sent a check, which I refused to cash. But they never followed up. They never asked why I didn't cash the check. And Newsnight have a greater obligation to me because of the lies of Emily Maitlies. Although she has left News Lies, I think she was given a bigger platform by News Lies than she should have been given ever. We'll come to Emily Maitlies and a new podcast and all the new platform with the racist John Sopel. John Sopel is the racist who was, for quite a while, the BBC's USA correspondent. Sopel is a poisonous racist liar. So these two racist liars have paired up now outside of the BBC. In terms of the values they represent, it gets worse. Now back to Boris Johnson, the liar, the depraved liar, doing the sex with Jennifer Arcuri in the family bedroom, his family bedroom, while he was still married to Marina Wheeler. Now she is a KSC, that is the King's Council. She was a Queen's Council then, I think. Now Marina Wheeler knows, Marina Wheeler is the daughter of Charles Wheeler, who was the BBC correspondent. Most people associated with the grey hair, and the BBC is probably longest serving foreign correspondent. My father actually estimated Charles Wheeler's age as older than Charles Wheeler was because of the grey hair. Now, the Lib Dems London Assembly member and fronter called Caroline Pigeon. Pigeon is spelled Pidgeon, is quoted in The Guardian typically about Johnson, saying there was some evidence, notice this, she's already limiting herself. There was some evidence Johnson was in an intimate relationship with Arcuri during some of the relevant period. Now, this Caroline Pigeon is a complete and utter liar. In a quotation so brief, she uses the qualifying negative, some, thus destroying her own alleged apparent criticism of Boris Johnson's adultery and dishonesty in having sex with Jennifer Arcuri. Now, why am I using the term sex? Because all the footage that came out before Johnson became contender for the leadership of the Conservatives, all the footage that were shown on British television, including Johnson and Arcuri together, all the footage made it very clear, absolutely clear, that Johnson was quite literally helpless when faced with Jennifer Arcuri, because he was not physically in a position, he was not physically behaving himself in a controlled, disciplined way. And Jennifer Arcuri reciprocated that in a physical language. The body language in each of them was too gross and too obvious for their relationship to be reduced to some evidence and some time. Now, Caroline Pigeon is a liability politician and a liar. She has been in the at the front of the Lib Dems in London, at the London Assembly for too long. And if Caroline Pigeon's quotation in The Guardian, on page 9 of The Guardian of Tuesday, the 27th of September 2022, is any guide, then it is a giveaway as to why the Lib Dems are sinking in London. They haven't got any platform politically, really, in London. And despite the fact that Keir Starmer has politically murdered the Labour Party, it appears that the Labour Party in London would have substantial grab of the London parliamentary seats. Now, I don't say any of this by in any way implying or intending to imply that the Lib Dems have not claimed to be morally higher than anyone else. But the history of the Lib Dems, or the Social Democrats, as they were called before that, at that phase, is replete, that is full of evidence of scandal and lying by the Lib Dems. And in Tower Hamlets, the Lib Dems lied when Paddy Pensdown was the leader of the Lib Dems, or he was a leading member anyway. And the Labour Party was involved in a serious constitutional law dispute through the courts. I mean, this program is too short for all the items to be gone through, but I shall cover that particular constitutional case in due course. Any moron that has the audacity or the stupidity to say that Richard Morey, who was the election commissioner, who sat hearing the petition against the corrupt mayor regime of the corrupt Luther Rahman, that Richard Morey only constituted an individual. Any moron that says that is, of course, contemptibly ignorant. Of course, Morey is an individual. Whatever the post or position he occupies or occupied, he is an individual. But we are talking about a structure, it's a constitutional structure. No matter how unconstitutional the behavior is of the constitutionally constituted constitutional courts or forums. The fact that Richard Morey's ruling, dated the 23rd of April 2015, has not been overturned, despite the fact that in direct and indirect ways, Luther Rahman and his operators, because Luther Rahman is a political dummy. He's not himself. He's not an independent politician. And the wiki entry, which refers to him as a British politician, is completely stupid. Luther Rahman is not a politician, for heaven's sake. Luther Rahman is a poodle. He is an instrument of the elements that operate from the complex that contains the East London Mosque, the London Muslim Centre, and allows the operation of what used to be called the Islamic Forum Europe, or IFE, as Andrew Gilligan called it in his broadcast aired on the 1st of March 2010 on Channel 4 television under the Dispatches banner. Now, Luther Rahman's so-called supporters are stupider than they should be. They could be. If they are really supporters of Luther Rahman, and if they want to rehabilitate anything about his image, they should get the facts right, and they haven't got the facts right at all, anywhere. Nor has Luther Rahman either. At the hustings, so-called hustings, organized mysteriously by a few kind of elements and held at the meeting room at the Bethnal Green Development Center at 7 to 15 Greater X Street, about 10 days before the election, so-called election of the mayor election in October 2010. The then so-called investigative reporter attached to the evening No Standard, David Cohen. Now Cohen gives the game away. David Cohen asked a very targeted question of Luthuraman, because Luthuraman was there, the conservative so-called candidate was there, the Lib Dem so-called candidate was there, the liberal so-called candidate wasn't there. That was the subject of the question. The question by David Cohen was stated in words to the effect, I'm using the words to the effect that David Cohen's question was contained in. That was what? 2010. 12 years ago. So I'm having to remember the essence of it. And remember what I'm remembering this for. It is to emphasize the evidence that Luthor is an idiot. He is clinically an idiot. Psychologically, he has deficiencies in terms of understanding cognitive idiocy. That's what I'm saying. So David Cohen asked him a targeted question to the effect that Luthor had failed to condemn his so-called supporters who had been spreading rumor about Abbas abusing his wife. I mean, that is a summary. I'm not quoting, but that is the essential summary of what David Cohen put to Luthuraman at that hustings held at 7 to 15 Greater X Street, about 10 days, a week before the 21st of October 2010, first mayoral election in Tower Hamlets. So what did Luthuraman say in reply? Let Luthuraman study what I'm saying very carefully, and his operators. Luthuraman completely denied having done that. Come on, that was not a question. He was not being accused of having done anything. He was being accused by David Cohen of not having done something. Not having done something, but not having done something. And what was David Cohen insinuating Luthuraman had not done? Because David Cohen was saying that Luthuraman should have stopped his so-called supporters, I'm using the word so-called supporters, from spreading or repeating or asserting words that suggested that Abbas alias Halal had been abusing his wife or had abused his wife. So it wasn't a question about Luthuraman having done something. It was a question about Luthuraman having not done something. And that was not having stopped his supporters, so-called, from attacking Abismal. Abbas alias Halal, Abismal is the name KhoodeelaarTV campaign has given him. Luthuraman said he did not do it. And then, as if that was not bad enough, Luthuraman pointed to a woman sitting not far behind in the audience where David Cohen was sitting. Apparently, this was Luthuraman's actual wife. And Luthuraman was saying that he had not abused his own wife, or words to that effect. Can you believe that? That was not what David Cohen was asking about. And this apparent wife, or the apparently, this woman apparently stood up and apparently corroborated what Luthvaraman was saying, that he, Luthvaraman, had not abused his own wife. And this was supposed to be Luthvaraman's own wife, saying that Luthvaraman had not abused her. But that's not what the question David Cohen put to him. Now, anyone watching this, whenever you are watching this, should think very carefully about this in the context of the hundreds of references that I have made in the last 3 years to Luthvaraman being a liar and incompetent and corrupt. And I have condemned all the so-called British white lefties in the last few months, since the 5th of May 2022, when the so-called election took place again, and Luthvaraman apparently staged a surprise victory against the Labour Party and became mayor of Tower Hamlets, within quotes again. Because the so-called left, some of whom are fascists actually, like the fascists on the led by Mick, whom the racist, fascist, anti-Muslim that actually was involved in the denial of the attacks on the Bosnian Muslims by the Serbs. And this ended up in court as a libel action against Mick Hume and other criminals, brought by Penny Marshall and a co-reporter from ITN. It was their report which had the footage showing that the Muslims, the Bosnian Muslims, were actually attacked by the Serbs. The emaciated bodies of these people was shocking even to the most kind of practiced observer of brutalities and criminalities. Mayhem and other criminals operate through the generosity of the dirty digger Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch is the sponsor and the funder of anti-Muslim elements right across the West. So what happened when David Cohen asked the question, and Luthvaraman totally misunderstood the question, that actually exposed Luthvaraman's claims that he grew up in the East End. The way he has been using the phrase grew up and other phrases similar to that suggests that he was a natural born East Ender, grew up in the East End, and he kind of has the necessary grasp of the language, the English language. But that was a shocking revelation that Luthvaraman cognitively, psychologically impaired in understanding straightforward question. How could he say that David Cohen's question about Luthvaraman not stopping his supporters from attacking Abbas, about Abbas's wife, how could Luthvaraman turn that into a question that said that Luthvaraman was himself guilty of having abused his own wife? That was not in the question. And that was not in the public domain anywhere during the whole period. So those left-wing socialist liars and morons who have celebrated Luthvaraman's so-called victory against the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets on the 5th of May 2022, They need to understand this. Lutfur Rahman asked Afsana Begum to send at least 2 emails to me, directly to me, while Afsana was working as an employee of the council, and Lutfur Rahman was still in place before the Mori hearings. And Afsana Begum said, completely untruthfully, that my concerns and my issues and representations to the council had been given the highest priority by the highest at the highest level. Afsana was lying. And who was she lying for? She was lying for Lutfur Rahman and she was lying for Ohid Ahmed. Those two had lied themselves. Ohid Ahmed had sent an email to me saying, leave me out of it. What the fuck was he doing? Also claiming at the same time that he was the deputy fucking mayor. How dare he? Face to face, he told me that he would look into it. It meaning all kind of litany of allegations, evidence and factual concerns against Lutfur Rahman lying. And then he had the temerity to send me stupid fucking email saying, leave me out of it. Was it his paternal property? তার মা বাবার সম্পত্তি নেই, Taramner's council or council position? Leave me out of it? Ita gaur mat paise ni. So these are the items of evidence of the stupidity and criminality and dishonesty of Lutfur Rahman and Ohid Ahmed that the so-called white left apologists have no idea about and are in denial about. As I said, when this schoolboy from Langdon Park School was murdered by other Bangladeshi boys, I went to ask the so-called community safety member, which is Ohid Ahmed. I went to find out what the council was doing to address the issue of Bangladeshi boys murdering other Bangladeshi boys. Not that that is the limit of it. How was it that boys were engaged in this kind of behavior? And as I said before, Ohid Ahmed could not rush me out of it fast enough by body language and by maintaining silence and stupidity. Now, Ted Jory and others like Mark Baines, I think, have published quite a few things about Ohid Ahmed being cognitively challenged. Now, the white left morons assume that a so-called Muslim politician, he's not a fucking Muslim politician. He's a stooge. Lutfur is a stooge, brainwashed, as Abbas said to the Labour Party National Executive, brainwashed by the East London Mosque or the IFE at the East London Mosque. He's not a Muslim candidate. What he used the Muslim about was in the way that Shamsul Haq of the Ford Square Mosque abused the Muslim faith or alleged faith of the Muslim voters. As discovered by the Mori hearings, Shamsul Haq actually had said to the worshippers, that is নামাজি হলরে কইছে মুসল্লি হলরে, যে লুৎফুরে বুট দেওয়া হইল গিয়া মুসলমানের দায়িত্ব. Not so. There is nothing in Islam that says that you should even remotely endorse a liar. What had Lutfur Rahman done? What had Luthorman done to advance the cause objectively of religious honesty? What has he done? Because when he is in the company of the white races, he pretends to be like them. Like whenever he refers to his upbringing in the east end of London and is going to the boys school or something, he pretends and he uses phrases so embarrassingly kind of exposed as sham. And when he's in the company of Muslims, now that particular picture published in the Spectator magazine with a byline from this little boy, this infant that was there in 2014, just before the May 2014 so-called election at the Stepney Green School area. That picture in the Spectator shows the actual faces of the people that Luthor actually represents. He represents them as their exploiter. And they allow him to represent them because they are totally gormless. Now, these are not people that are conscientious kind of voters. They don't think. They have no idea. They have no capacity, mental capacity, social capacity, let alone democratic capacity to understand all the elements together and work out that Lutfur is a con man. He has been a con man and he has been conning the Bangladeshis into our hamlets. So these people, many of them are quite kind of identifiable as regular kind of faces that are gathered together in these bogus kind of community gatherings. Because Ted Jury is an idiot and his colleague from the Financial Times at the time was another idiot, racist idiot, and he has not yet corrected his entry on the Financial Times website. The Spectator website, because he's now with the Financial Times, but at the time he was with the Spectator. Because those two were idiots, they didn't know that the important thing about that gathering was not to talk about Lutfur Rahman's kind of ally or Lutfur Rahman's close ally, former councillor, the younger brother of the former councillor Murtuza. Because Tertiary got diverted into doing reverse selfie or reverse mobile photography of these people instead of talking about the totally outrageously false gathering of the people there. Because if they knew who these people were, then that alone would have shown that Lutfur was a bigger con man than anyone has yet understood. So going back to all of this because of Boris Johnson and the heading on page 9 of The Guardian saying that Johnson inquiry urges new mayoral ethics rules. Now, this is a piece by Ravenna Mason, Whitehall editor now. She used to be political editor, wasn't she? And the another one is the MP's hit back at criticisms of Partygate investigation. Now, this hitting back at criticism of the Partygate investigation, it's a byline to Aubrey Allegretti, political correspondent. Now, this is a criticism attributed to the liar David Pennick. Now, David Pennick is a crooked license law trader. Pennick was prominent in the constitutional law pretentious cases put to the court against the Brexiteers by this Miller person. And Panic pretended to be a person of the highest moral kind of code and constitutional awareness. He never was any such thing. Panic is a liar and a habitual and a regular supporter of adulterers and sexual abusers. Because Panic was the member of the so-called House of Peers who moved a series of motions, or who engineered a number of kind of talks in the House of Peers in support of Anthony Lester, who is now dead. Anthony Lester was the member of the House of Peers and a licensed law trading constitutional law professional himself. Lester had been accused by an Indian woman, either Sikh woman or a Hindu woman, of having put his hand on her thighs while he was driving her to his house. Now, Lester at the time, on that day, was still married to a woman. But he was taking this Indian woman to his marital house as part of the process of sexually gratifying himself with her. And the actual currency he offered her was that if she slept with him, he would make it possible for her to become made a member of the House of Peers. All of this is in the evidence, yes? So David Penick was the one in the House of Peers who led the campaign for Leicester and condemned those who were demanding his expulsion from the House of Peers. So he has got form. That was Leicester. Now he has sold his soul and prostituted himself for the serial adulterer Boris Johnson. And he is saying that all the inquiries and all these allegations against Johnson about adultery and abusing his position as the mayor are false, untrue, just as he was saying in defense of Anthony Lester. Now, Penick, as a licensed law trader, a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, sold himself as a prostitute to the Manchester Football Club, Football Association, over a dispute that they were having with the UEFA. Now, regardless of the contents of the dispute, Penick charged them £20,000 for each day that he was on hire, regardless of whether he was doing anything or not. I put that in context, and I put that in context before as well. The Penick's charges, £20,000 a day now. A day is not 24 hours. A day is 6 or 7 hours at most. So if you divide £20,000 by 6 or 7, you get to understand just how outrageously exorbitant and exploitative Penick was in charging. But that's what they do. It's a blackmail situation. So nobody knows who is paying for Penick's being the prostitute lawyer for Boris Johnson, but whoever is paying substantial amounts of money. Now, when Richard Morris' decision was described on the BBC Newsnight piece fronted by David Grossman, the grossly idiotic moron, by Court Councillor Kabir Ahmed, as the opinion of an individual. Councillor Kabir Ahmad committed not one wrong and one act of idiocy, but several. Because Richard Morey did not sit there as an individual on a pub bench. Richard Morey, no matter how anyone might question his abilities and intelligence or whatever, Richard Morey was fully fit as the election commissioner. And he was fully entitled as the holder of that post at that time to give that ruling. Whatever the ruling was, give a ruling, his ruling. And he did give his ruling. It was not Richard Morey's personal ruling. It was ruling on behalf of the state of the United Kingdom. Remember? The courts are one organ of the state. And the ruling that Richard Morey gave is the ruling on behalf of the state. Any student of law would have known that, wouldn't they? Councillor Kabir Ahmad, a few years ago, claimed to people that he was studying law. What had he stage of the study had he reached by the date of that interview, which was broadcast on the 19th of May 2022? Did Kabir Ahmad become a licensed law trading either solicitor or a barrister? If he did, then of course he didn't deserve to be given the credit as a fit person who knows the law. Because Richard Morey, the way he dismissed Richard Morey, the election commissioner, showed that Councillor Kabir Ahmad didn't know the law and the legal structure or the legal system, let alone the constitution. And of course, we have pointed out that Councillor Kabir Ahmad said that the ruling, the things that followed that ruling had, he said, vindicated Lutfur Rahman's critics. Now remember, vindication is if someone's critics are vindicated, that means that the criticism was correct, has been proven right. So here was Councillor Kabir Ahmad speaking as a supporter of Lutfur Rahman, saying that Lutfur Rahman's Lutfur Rahman's critics, opponents, have been vindicated by what followed. That cannot be right, can it? So it's not just Lutfur Rahman getting the question of David Cohen's question wrong. It's not just him and Ohid Ahmad lying, and it's not Afsana Begum lying for the two of them. It's every single one of them. Incompetent and cognitively challenged and intellectually completely unfit. So how are these in positions that they are in? And how is it that Afsana Begum has got any number of endorsements by the likes of John MacDonald, who is a Ken Livingstone supporting ally of Afsana Begum? Now, Afsana Begum is around 30 years old. I knew her father and I got him to seek to become a counselor, which he did become, and by way of the formality of the Labour Party's group structure, he became a ceremonial mayor as well. None of that would have been possible if I hadn't put him on course. But I was requested by one of the Labour Party members in Shadwell on the 14th of September 2010 at the Troxy, where I related Afsana Begum's now late father's idiotic behavior. And somebody, in a manner of speech, requested me not to attack Monir, that is Afsana Begum's father, because he was already very seriously ill. There was no question of Afsana Begum's father telling the truth. He was a liar. I never knew who Afsana Begum was because she was only about 30. And I knew her father long before she was born. I knew him when he was running a sari shop in the Hessel Street. And by way of gossip, we talked there about the community. And Munir Ahmad, until the moment when he started lying, appeared to kind of take part in the ethical discussions that I always wanted to have with people. So Afsana Begum lied, as did Lutfur Rahman, as did Wahid Ahmad, as did Jackie Odunoy, the odious one, as did the criminal Colin Cormac, the liar. As did the liar Dalavi, Aman Dalvi. Dalvi is a kind of anglicized, I think, version of the Dalavi. So the Aman Dalvi must be coming from a background in Delhi, in India. Wherever he came from, didn't stop him becoming a liar, joining the band of liars that Lutfur Rahman fronted. On the 15th of February 2011 in Brick Lane, on the 15th of February 2011 in Brick Lane, that was a Tuesday, Aman Dalby physically turned left when he spotted I was filming them coming towards the camera. I was not filming Dalby. I was not filming anybody else, really. I was filming Lutfur Rahman in context, in the physical context. So whoever else was in the surrounds got included in the film. But Aman Dalby was immediately behind Lutfur Rahman. And he was also behind this criminal liar, Aziz Chaudhry, within quotation marks, of the SSBA. I have picture taken from the screenshot. I've taken screenshots of the video that I posted on the same day, showing that this liar, Aziz Chaudhry so-called, was physically trying to appease Lutfur Rahman as Rahman was getting into the car. Now, Lutheraman physically is not taller than Aziz Chaudhry. And yet Aziz Chaudhry behaved like this quivering moron trying to appease somebody and trying to smile as Luther was getting in the car and the car door was being shut. As the car door was being shut, Aziz Chaudhry put on a smile for the benefit of Luther Rahman. And now, why would you do that? If he, Aziz Chaudhry so-called, didn't have anything to hide about his inferiority, moral inferiority, then why was he in the so-called job that he was in, as part of which he thought he was doing his job on the 15th of February 2011? So that is the kind of style of Aziz Chaudhry, the style that I witnessed in the town hall. Town hall, what date did I witness? This was on the 11th of, in the 15th of February 2011. 2 years later, calendar years later, I witnessed Aziz Chaudhry doing the same thing in the Mulberry Place. It is a so-called part called the Mayor's Parlor, or Mayor's kind of extension on the town hall. Repeatedly, Aziz Chaudhry tried to speak with Lutfur Rahman, and repeatedly Lutfur Rahman was physically shunning him. Now, what on earth was Aziz Chaudhry doing that for? Because Lutfur Rahman would be like Aziz Chaudhry's own son's age. So, in the culture, Lutfur Rahman should be expected to treat Aziz Chaudhry as an older person with respect because of the age, if for nothing else. And yet Aziz Chaudhry was allowing Lutfur Rahman to ignore him and to actually behave as if he, Lutfur Rahman, was walking all over Aziz Chaudhry on that occasion. So this is the kind of behavior that the left, the so-called left, including Navara media, what a bunch of morons. And this ultra-socialist from the LSC, this woman who uses the term read about her. These are completely artificial people. They talk about the mayor system in Tower Hamlets as if there is a mayor system in Tower Hamlets with morality, ethics, accountability, and so on. So this broadcast has been 55 minutes long so far. And it's 6 o'clock GMT, which is 7 o'clock in the British Standard Time frame. We shall go on a bit more because we have to look at the other headlines in the Free Street papers. But going back to the corrupt mayor, Boris Johnson, being the cause of this inquiry, urging new mayoral ethics rules. Now, these people are stupid. Have they forgotten that Boris Johnson was violating the rules about the COVID? So what Boris Johnson did when he was in post for 8 years, he was doing it absolutely brazenly. And the picture of him published in The Guardian, in which Arcuri is standing next to him, and Arcuri and him are both smiling. Now, Arcuri has boasted in one of the interviews that I heard, she has boasted that Johnson couldn't keep his hands off her. And she described her own body in some detail. Because if they're asking for moral codes, then of course they are doing so in denial of the codes that Johnson broke over the COVID. Because COVID rules and the yet unnamed code for mayors, not at all different in terms of compliance. And I have talked about David Cohen and David Penick already, of course. Now, the Guardian says that Larry Elliott, who is rarely given a front page space in the Guardian, has got a rare occasion when this headline is absolutely perfect. Strach's strategy unravels. There is a piece in the features supplement on the Telegraph, Daily Telegraph, Tuesday, the 27th of September. And it says, "Don't judge a woman by her hair." And the byline seems to be by a woman called Bryony Gordon. Now, Bryony Gordon does not say anything about her behaving like a prostitute for the daily Boris Johnson graph. Because for a number of years non-stop, she So what happened with Partygate actually shows that even if there were rules, Boris Johnson wouldn't care about the rules. So these people have got it wrong, and they are members of parliament, etc., etc. And some of them are self-described as highly intelligent, like Rhonda Chris. He has the actual claim about him that he is a constitutional law expert, and he has appeared frequently on the floor of the House of Commons to make a seriously looking constitutional point. But I never saw anything in his performance that singled him out as a distinguished constitutional law expert. Now, apart from the Daily Boris graph, there is a whitewash in the Daily Mail about Boris Johnson. It is supporting Johnson, but on the front page it is talking about the Kwarteng budget. Well, the whole of the City of London and the entirety of the financial journalism commentariat found absolutely no evidence to support Johnson. So what we shall be doing is following up on the other things, but this heading, let me just read the headings before closing that particular edition. This is the heading on the Daily Star. And it says, "Honey, I shrunk the quids." Quids is a colloquial for pounds. Shrunk meaning going down as compared to or compared against the dollar. And it says Chancellor is accused of being fiscal clown. It can't be shown, but it's the clown is they've got a nose, Kwarteng, looking like a clown. And they're saying that pound hits record low and interest rate likely to rise. experts queue up to attack Karzai's A-level economics. Well, it's not A-level economics either. And there are other headings in the papers that will take longer than this edition has got time for. So we are putting an end to this particular edition at 7:10 local time in the UK, and it's 06:10 hours GMT on Wednesday, the 28th of September 2022.